It's Team Air Riders, and we're presenting our first and probably only podcast called Harnessing the Sky to Heal the Earth. It's a beautiful day in West Lafayette, Indiana. We've got a really beautiful sunny 50-degree day to break up the snow and rain and sleet and everything else. We're part of AAE251 Team 404. My name's Ishan.
My name is Mario.
I'm Adam. I'm Alfredo. I'm Daniel.
And today's December 8th. It's a Sunday. It's a beautiful day. So we'll get started. Adam, could you give us a brief review of the project stakeholders and requirements for our project?
Yeah, of course, Ishan. The whole world is impacted by our project, but our most important stakeholders are going to be the crew who will be involved in operating the plane, so they're going to need to be able to do so with ease and comfort. There's also the U.S. government, which is funding our project, and they expect it to successfully reverse climate change.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, there's also elderly and immunocompromised people who are more likely to get sick as a result of declining air quality. Finally, there's manufacturing companies who need our model to be feasible to manufacture, and people who live on coasts or near the equator, as they're most affected by climate change.
What are the reasons why they're most affected by climate change?
So the people who live on coasts are more subject to natural disasters and rising water levels. And also the people who live near the equator are more subject to rising temperatures.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you, Adam. Now, what about the requirements?
Most importantly, we're going to need a large cargo space to accommodate the 30,000 plus pound payload of aerosol. We also need a 65,000 plus foot flight ceiling to spray the aerosol into the stratosphere. And we're going to need a 400 plus nautical mile range at altitude with the payload to release the aerosol over a large area.
Thank you for the specificity, Adam. That was really helpful. Now, moving on to Daniel to start our discussion of the design process. How did we as a team generate concepts for our designs?
Yeah, so when we were generating our concepts, we wanted two of our designs to just be all the same, except one, we have the wings mounted on the top of the fuselage, and the other on the bottom. And we really wanted to analyze which design would make the aircraft fly better. We basically ended up finding that the overwing design offered more stability than the underwing. With the underwing, we also wanted to try a bicycle landing gear design similar to the U-2 spy plane, where we have two large inline landing gear on the fuselage and two very light landing gear on the tips of the wings to keep our wings from striking the runway. However, we decided to go for the overwing design as we found that any weight-saving advantages of the underwing design with bicycle gears were not better than the stability offered by the overwing design.
Wow, thanks, Daniel. That was very detailed, yet still very easy to understand. Now that we have our general concepts, Alfredo, how did we conduct our calculations for the design?
Yeah, so a lot of math went into sizing our aircraft. One of our primary focuses was actually just finding the weight of the aircraft, as this would help design the subsequent plane. Using an iterative method based on weight fractions from Raymer, we were actually able to find the estimated weight for the aircraft right at the beginning. Our next focus lay on finding the range of the aircraft given its fuel capacity. This would help us determine the ability of the aircraft to complete the required missions, such as the payload dispensing mission or the ferry mission. Using these values, we can then calculate how much fuel we need, and from there, actual flight characteristics such as climbing ability, flight ceiling, and mission time, based off of other factors such as our thrust, engine, atmospheric conditions, and our changing weight through the flight.
Thanks, Alfredo. Now, to conclude the discussion of our design process, Mario, how did we choose the concepts and design features as a team?
Yeah, so our decisions were ultimately decided by what we thought would best suit our mission. And as we talked about earlier, one of the hardest parts about this project was finding ways to calculate numbers we needed with missing parameters. So in order to do this, we had to find planes to reference for certain parameters. And the examples of planes we chose to use were the B767, the B737, and the U-2 spy plane. And once we had values we could use to calculate parameters, we did additional research to find ideas for specific engines and tail layouts that would best suit our aircraft. The other design features we added were based on knowledge we learned from class and additional research. We knew that the overwing would be a good idea because we wanted more stability, which is important at higher altitudes since maneuverability is not the focus of our aircraft. We also figured that it would be best to dispense the particles from the bottom of the plane because other aircraft, such as the firefighting planes that release fire retardants, are already doing this successfully.
Wow, thank you, Mario, for that very detailed and specific conclusion to our design process. Now, Alfredo, can you just give us a summary of what our final design looked like?
Yeah, of course, Ishan. So our final design consists of a large cargo carrier with a large wingspan of 52.6 meters and a length of over 36 meters.
Wow.
Our aircraft is fitted with 4 CFM LEAP-1 engines that are able to carry up to 30,000 pounds of cargo to 65,000 feet.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, not only that, but we can get to cruise in 18 minutes at full throttle.
Oh, wow.
We can also achieve a range of 6,300 kilometers at a full tank, with an MTOW of 346,000 pounds. This all allows our aircraft to be adapted to a wide variety of missions needing high altitude and large payload carrying capacity.
Wow, thank you, Alfredo, for walking us through all those calculations. I know they got very complicated at times. Adam, am I right about that?
Yeah, man, those calculations were grueling, but as a team, we conquered them.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'll now be summarizing the lessons learned from this project. The first and probably most important thing we learned is that we learned the benefit of using MATLAB for calculations rather than calculating everything by hand. Mario, what do we think about that?
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Amen.
Nice guy, nice one.
I like that.
Nice one, Daniel. Now, continuing to move on. We discovered that it was much easier to put our work in MATLAB because we can change the numbers and parameters very easily when we notice a mistake. Furthermore, in doing this, our group became very well versed in writing MATLAB equations and loops that can work for any input of numbers, not just for the parameters of our project. Furthermore, we learned how complicated designing an aircraft can be beyond the scope of the class. There were equations and values we hadn't even learned that we had to research to calculate important parameters for our project. In doing so, we learned about things like the coefficient of drag and how that's affected by the skin friction coefficient and many other things. We also gained a better understanding of the information we learned in class because the project gave us a hands-on experience in actually applying the equations and things we learned in class. Overall, our group really enjoyed the opportunity to expand and practice our skills and knowledge in aircraft design and development. Thank you for tuning in into this episode of our podcast, and make sure to tune in next week where we'll be tackling world hunger.